Cool. Thank you very much for that introduction, Alan. And before I start talking about my thing, I'd just like to first do some acknowledgements and thank you. So thank you to the VALA committee for organising VALA. It's been quite a while, so it's really, really good that we can meet face to face and do this type of learning. A lot of these things you always pick up different bits of information from all the different sessions, so I think it's really, really important. So thanks, Alan, thanks, Melissa, and thanks the rest of VALA. And before I even talk about my presentation, I'd just like to look at the State Library's Acknowledgement of Country, and I'm not going to read it out, but I'm going to point out a couple of key things that when we talk about AI and whatnot, that we want to just think about. So one of the key things is we support communities to protect the integrity of the information. We pay our respects to their elders. So when we look at AI and the digital images, particularly ones of Indigenous Australians, I always want to keep that in mind, like, are we paying respect? How we deal with integrity. So these are really, really key things. And when we're so these are key things that we want to think about throughout this presentation. So I'll go back to the start. My one, this was before I started working at the State Library, and I was really wanting to look about, can we as a library or digital library use AI? And maybe just yes or no. Maybe just no, we can't do it, we'll think about it later. But when I got really dug into it, it was really about how can we can use AI, and some of the best things we can do is about improving accessibility of our digital collections. So I know, like in our previous ones that Kathy did, we had really good introduction to what is AI. But I want to show you guys and talk about the practical applications of how we embed it in your collection, how you put it in your discovery layer, how you put it in your digital repository, and the pros and cons of it. And I don't want it to be a lecture. If you've got any questions, either yell it out or put it in the app. I'm happy to talk about it. So it's really a practical application of AI. So again, think about the key concepts: respect and integrity when we start talking about this type of stuff. So one of the things I really wanted to look at was, one of my main questions was, if an image is available online, does that mean it's accessible? A lot of times we'll say at State Library we've got 1 or 2 million pictures available online, or we'll say accessible online. But the main things I'm always thinking about, are they accessible and who are they accessible to? So sometimes we might have, this one's from Swinburne, these other two are from State Library. But something like this, it's nicely catalogued, but my question is always, is it accessible to our key audiences? Now, if we look at the mission statements of State Library South Australia, State Library of Queensland, they all call out they want to engage with younger learners, with Indigenous communities, and communities from culturally and linguistically diverse backgrounds. So these are not even, we're not even talking about people with a visual or audio disability. These other people from those communities have accessibility issues. So again, we may be thinking about primary school students with no disabilities. If you ask them, I ask my kids to read this and read other handwritten copper plate stuff, they tell me that's not in English, I can't read it. This one's actually a really nice one. We've got a lot of other ones. They will say, I can't read it, I don't know what you're talking about. And that is an accessibility issue. It's a handwritten English document that kids who are our primary audience. If we're a state library, we want to engage with younger learners, and they can't access or use that information. And so that one's just, people with no disabilities are going to have problems reading that. Again, if you come from a country that doesn't use English or Latin script, you're going to have trouble reading this type of stuff if you're not familiar with cursive handwriting. And this is another picture over here. One things we do always got to think about is people with on the whole spectrum of what is learning disabilities. So some of this picture is actually really well catalogued. So it's a picture of St. Paul's Cathedral in Melbourne. But some of the really important information in there is actually buried in the picture. Unless you zoom in and really dig around, you're not going to see it. So if you've got any type of attention issues where you can't spend 10 minutes zooming around or downloading it, or we've got like a few different versions of it, you have to get the high res to really understand what the picture is. Because you might look at it and say, you know, a student may look and say, it's a picture, olden days black and white picture. But when you need to really dig into it to find out some of the key concepts. So there's, you know, this hotel, Cathedral Hotel doesn't exist anymore. There's advertising, there's trams, there's a whole bunch of interesting stuff that if you've got a learning disability, that's going to be not accessible to you. Even though the image is available, you're not going to be able to use that information. And the same type of thing, this is another one, but we're going to look, it's green on green. So people with, you know, they might have colour blindness issues or visual impairments are not going to be able to, are really going to struggle with this type of thing. So a lot of times, accessibility is not just for blind people or deaf people. It's for a whole spectrum of our core audiences. Again, core audiences, younger learners, culturally and linguistically diverse backgrounds, and Indigenous communities. And why I'd say Indigenous communities is the Indigenous community has a 3 times higher likelihood of a visual issue in both eyes. So that's why this is key issue is getting the information out of this type of, how do we make that information accessible if you've got a vision impairment. So when we're talking about AI, one of the main concerns is about ethical and the biases that we need to consider. And this is from the State Library website. On any Indigenous or any culturally sensitive material, we'll have this up. You have to read it and click on it. So one thing's, I'm not going to have any images today from Indigenous Australians, because we've got to look at this. It says we cannot support any derogatory use of this work and descriptive terms that may be offensive to Indigenous Australians. So I will discuss a couple of examples where we'll have images from our catalogue and the AI will come up with terms or descriptions that are going to be quite offensive. So I'm not going to show any, but we'll discuss some. And Kathy did talk earlier before about the racial and also gender, but there's also age and a few other considerations. Now why I've got these two other standard 2 other items from our collection. The one on the far right is there's 10 guys who are in the Victorian Parliament. If we give that to the AI, it does amazing work. It will tell you, that this is 10 males. Each one of them will give their age and gender profile as well. So that works fantastic for white males. Okay, if they're not white males, it's going to become, doesn't go crazy, but it can get very offensive. What if it says, currently it will say it's 10 males. What if there was an Indigenous person there and it came back and just said there's 9 people? Okay, that's going to start getting quite offensive without actually saying anything. So it's being offensive by not saying stuff. And the reason I put this one here, there's 2 white guys with a gun. It's been catalogued as two men with a gun. If I give that to the AI, it says there's just 2 people there. But if there's Indigenous people, even without a gun, if there's a particular stance or something, it may say person with a gun. And that's going to be highly offensive. So these, without getting into the other things where Kathy said African American people getting labelled not as human, these are highly offensive things that even from not saying it can be very offensive. So anything to do with any Indigenous and anything where misgendering could be an issue, I would absolutely exclude that from any of the AI work. So this is practical applications. If you have got those labelled in your collections, I would exclude that from any AI work straight up. So I'll go back to this one. Sorry. Okay, so I'll go back to this one. So we'll do a practical application. So part of Alan's team, they've got a web developer, and part of my fellowship was to build an API that can access all the images from our image repository. We use OAI, which a lot of image repositories do. So I've written some software, extract all the images via OAI and apply some AI on them, and then enable an API which people like web developers for digital repository can use. So this is just a very simple example of what the AI will present. In this example, we've got, this is just a sketch, and it's got a whole bunch of names and whatnot down here. So it'll give you automatically tagging, give you a description, tells you different objects in them. But one of the things, and I'm still not really 100% convinced that those top three are actually useful. But what I'm really, really interested in is the image text. So we can see here, this was all automatically read from all this information down there and pulled out. So, and you say, oh, that's just OCR. This is not OCR, and I'll give you some examples. But what happens the next layer on is all pull out like key phrases, but also if it's a known person, it'll give you a link to the Wikipedia profile. If it's a location, it'll give you like a Google Maps reference as well. That way, in your discovery layer, you can bring in this extra layer of information. And all these type of things, this is currently in our image repository. We can put these type of terms back into our discovery layer as well. So these could go into Primo or into your source system. Because currently, you know, if you were searching for your grandfather, you know, Isaac's or whatever, you wouldn't find that in the discovery layer, because that information is not there. It's just been catalogued as, you know, the new Parliament pictures or something like that. It's pulling out the information, enriching it, and then hopefully putting it back in the discovery layer to make it really accessible to the end users, because they're going to be searching for, you know, state library, family history is a huge thing. They just search for their family name, and they would never find, their grandfather might be in this picture, but they wouldn't find it without bringing this information out. So a lot of people say, oh, that's still just OCR. I'll give you an example. This is from our current collection. This is OCR. So this is a historical document. And what happens when you OCR, and this is typed text, this one should be pretty good. Because it's historical, you know, it's not scanned in. And again, it's about 80% of it is just symbols and that type of stuff. So I'll go back. That's the best OCR we can get at the moment. Again, compared to that, this is the AI text extraction. It's, you know, super clean, and it's actually really, really good. So many, many different things that AI can do in our image repositories, but text extraction and some text analysis is, I think, the absolute highlights, especially when we talk about accessibility. This is our, you know, someone at any visual learning information is going to struggle with that information way down the bottom, trying to pull out their family names or whatnot. This is, I suppose, the real practical application of AI. It is the text extraction and text analysis on your images at the moment. So I can do tons of other stuff, but I'm most excited about the real practical application of this. So this is currently OCR, and one of the problems with OCR is a lot of times it's extremely time consuming and cumbersome. So someone will get the image, put it in the OCR software, it goes into a XML file, then they have to upload the XML file onto the server, and then they have to link the file to the image repository. It's a very long workflow. Whereas we go back here, this has all been done automated at scale, so we can automatically harvest and process, you know, the whole millions of records and make it immediately available. So one of the hardest things is to do it at scale rather than just a few different things. So the benefit of these AI and the APIs is we can do it not just on, you know, a couple of hundred or a couple of thousand records. We can do it on, you know, you can do it on 1 million records or your entire digital repository, and enable it for maybe a small bit of your collection or all your collections. So that's one of the main purposes or main benefits, is the scale that we can get with this new AI technology. And I know Kathy did cover a lot, machine learning, a lot of these type of things. They're way above my technical skills. This type of AI stuff is available from Microsoft, AWS from Amazon, and also Google as well, just as an API service. You give it an image, it gives you back the amazing AI results. So we don't have to do any crazy models or machine learning on any of this hard stuff. We just got to give it to Amazon or Microsoft, and they can give us the fantastic data back. So we don't have to, I know Kath is saying, what technical skills do you need? You need, like, can you use a web browser? Then that's all you need to be able to do, and you can start doing AI stuff. So it's low tech, but fantastic results. And again, I don't want to be as a lecture. Feel free to, if you've got any questions, just either yell them out.
Quick question about, we've been using Microsoft and found that they don't always pick up Australian terms and things like that. Have you done any work with them in that regard?
Yeah. I'll have to repeat that question again. The question was, with Microsoft and some other services, Google, it doesn't pick up the Australian terms. I'll say that's, yeah, absolutely correct, and especially more pronounced with the speech stuff as well. So I've used some of the speech. We've got a lot of audio files. So audio files, can we do AI stuff on it? I would say no, just don't even bother for historical stuff, unless it's broadcast level, clear American speaking. That the AI results is going to be awful. So even though we do talk a lot to Google on our devices, it's still not good enough for our type of work. So a lot of our type of audio files are going to be historical, copied from a tape recorder onto a hard drive or something. The quality is not going to be good enough, unfortunately. Again, when we bring in the Australian accent, it just goes 0% accuracy. Okay, so I'll go back to Sura. So another thing's, are we sure we can't just OCR it? Isn't it just a really fancy OCR? We'll go through and say, what is not. So this, again, a bit hard to read on your screen, but here's a picture of St. Paul's Cathedral, Swanston Street, Melbourne. Again, if you've got any issues with contrast, you wouldn't be able to read that. So if we just OCR'd that, we just get a jumble. But if we gave it to the AI services, it can pull out all the different text in the image. So some of the stuff which I didn't even know until I started doing, back here, which is really hard to see, it does say Cathedral Hotel. Up here it says Lipton's Tea, and there's some other advertising. And so down here it says Toorak and Queensbury Street as well as the name of the tram. So it pulls out all that information from the backgrounds and just brings it to the reader. And I'll go back here. This is our test version of our image repository. We just put all that text available there for the user to actually see. So really try and make that information that's buried in there accessible. And again, that's one layer. Hopefully we can bring that layer information into your discovery layer as well, so they can just search for things like, if you're searching for Toorak or whatever, you can bring this information in. Now, why is this important? What's next? So once the text has been extracted, the AI services can do the next level, which is text analysis. So here it'll pull out, Lipton's. It said there's Lipton's tea advertising here, and it gives you a link to Wikipedia. It knows it to the Lipton's organisation, and it'll say Toorak, Victoria. It's pulled Toorak from the name of the tram, and it'll give you a Wikipedia and also like a Google Maps link as well. And it'll pull out things like, this is actually the modern name for this place is City of Melbourne, and it'll give you, says this is the location, Wikipedia, Google Maps as well. So now in the past, some people have tried to look at how can we show all our digital images on a map, like where they were actually taken. Before we couldn't do that, it was based on MARC records or manual cataloguing. But with this type of things, bring this information out, enable it in the discovery layer. You could search for pictures just in Melbourne or that type of level of information. So this is the real, making it more than just accessible, but really putting it out there to the users in the way what they're actually searching for. Again, if you were searching for a cathedral hotel, because that's a historic building that's no longer exists, it's now, it's called the City Square, whatever it is what that hotel used to be. You would never find this picture normally if you did a search for Cathedral Hotel, and this is probably one of the better pictures of that hotel. Again, you'd have to be a really good researcher. I'm actually going to look for photos of St. Paul's Cathedral, look for it in the background, that type of stuff. So get the information out and really give it to the users as a real practical way. Again, my focus is on accessibility. If you have any type of learning or visual issue, you're not going to be able to pick up the really key bits of information in that picture. Cathedral Hotel, a lot of kids may not recognise this as Melbourne City because it doesn't look like anything like Melbourne City, or it's from the Toorak and Queensbury Street tram as well. And again, even without that, once you've got things like Toorak and Queensbury Street, you can type that into Google and it'll tell you, okay, that tram line existed in 1880 or something like that. So it really gives you a good how you can time or date a picture as well based on this additional information. So this is really, again, my main concern is accessibility. People on any spectrum who has any learning, visual, or don't understand the cultural relevance of the image can really get this information out, and also we can present this information in other ways. Okay, so I'll go talk about, does anyone have any questions on that? I'm just going to pause for a minute. Sorry? Yes, so I'll go back and talk a couple of things. That's a good question. I'll go a bit forward. So I currently use the Amazon AWS, their AI services. And as part of my fellowship, I built a tool which is called Biblio.ai. The code is all open source, it's free. It basically connects your image repository to the AI services to enable and builds an API from it. So I've got it and I've got links in my images to show you how you use it. Currently I've just run it on SLV content, but it's easy enough. I can run it on other image repositories because it just uses OAI. Most image repositories, or even Alma, different services can publish OAI out as well.
So these repositories can be image files,
Yeah, currently I'm just using it for images, but PDFs is, I think, especially when we talk about thesis repositories, is something I'm really, really interested in.
Justin, how do you train it?
Yeah, good. I don't do anything. So again, that's like way too complex, not too complex, but we want to do it at scale where I can just throw anything at it. So we're using the APIs from Amazon. And there will, like Kathy pointed out, there's going to be known issues with it where it points something as a giraffe instead of bundle. So again, we're not training it, it's just using the available services. And those services cost money, but they're actually relatively cheap. So I think, say if we're going to do 1 million images, and maybe like $10,000 or something like that in actual fees you have to pay. Compared to, if you go think about, if you asked how much would it cost to catalogue 1 million images? And how long? I'll talk about that in a sec.
When we pay cataloguers might be about the same.
Yeah, sorry about that. I'll go on to talk about, when we talk about the cost, which will say, $10,000 is a lot of money, but I know State Library New South Wales, if anyone's seen their Tiger system, I don't know what it's like, $20,000 they paid to I don't even know what it is, but somewhere between 20 and 100,000 would be a thing you would pay to AI enable your entire collection. something like that. So we'll talk about, that's a good lead on to this question. The State Library of Victoria has the 25 volumes of Jenkins' diaries. I don't know if anyone knows about Jenkins, but he was a diarist from the Victorian Gold Rush era. Now we've got 25 volumes and we've been manually transcribing them. And so we've got 25 volumes. When I first started this, it was about 21 had been transcribed over 13 years by volunteers and State Library people. And this is at a really high accuracy, even though some of it's really hard to read, say about 99% accuracy. But again, you've got to think it's taken 13 years to get that level. Now this is, I've got a source, an image from one of the Jenkins diaries, which again, I could click on here and go to it, and we've got the AI result. And for this one, it's like the handwriting is actually quite clear, and the results are actually quite readable. Even though you're going to get a lot of spelling mistakes, you can kind of read the translation, kind of understand what the letter is actually about. So why I say this, I'll go back to it, is I did 3 volumes of the Jenkins diaries, and it took maybe an hour or two, and it cost me $8. Okay, and also, even if the accuracy was, sometimes it's between 5 or 0 and 40% accuracy, for $8 in a couple of hours, compared to 13 years for a lot of people's work, okay, more than 0% accuracy, I was actually quite happy. Because again, if you've only got 1% accuracy, you think, oh, that's crazy. But once you've got the text analysis on it, it may pick out a location or a family name. And then if you're searching for that family, you'd never, if your grandfather was referenced in this diary, it may only pick out a few family names or locations, or you're searching for people in Castlemaine or something like that. Without that, being able to pull that out, most people who weren't, hardcore researchers are never going to find that information. So again, anything more than 1%, I'm happy with this type of stuff. Because again, a couple of hours, not 13 years, and we've got stuff straight away. And again, it's going to have spelling mistakes, but you use your brain, you can figure out what's actually saying. Again,
sorry. I have to come up and say our time is up. If you would like to stay, I'm sure a little more. But,
way too much. So I'll go back. I'll go to the last slide. I'll put my details on there. Cool. So anyone has any information, feel free to talk to me now after the conference. Hit me up online. But again, definitely think there's a huge amount of practical, real-world applications for AI type stuff. Cool. Thank you.